Firstly, we will have application of unreleased AR documents to payments, customer refunds with open balance, flexible statement generation options, matching of bank transactions to multiple documents, matching of bank transactions to invoices with bank charges, negative write-offs on the processed bank transaction screen, tech support in cash transactions on the processed bank transaction screen, and there are other things that you can find in the release notes as well. So let's get right into it. The first exciting enhancement in the finance module is the ability to apply unreleased invoices and debit memos to payments. That's right. In the past, you can only apply payments against an invoice or a debit memo with the open status. Now, you can do that for invoices and debit memos with the balance or on hold status. This will offer much more flexibility to users in terms of documents processing. So I'm in the payments and application screen, and I have a payment for this customer for a value of $200, and this payment has a status of open. It has already been released. On this screen, I have an invoice that has a balance status, and I have an invoice line for service with a unit price of $100. This invoice has not yet been released. Now, if I go to the Applications tab, I can see that there is a new change on this tab where there is a plus sign where I can add the payments in this invoice. In the past versions, this was not there, and this Applications tab only displayed documents that have been applied on the invoice through the Payments and Application screen. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and select my payment in here. And I can specify the amount to be paid. I'm gonna put $110 because that's the balance of my invoice, and save. Now, if I go back to the payment and application screen and refresh, I can see that the invoice has already been applied on the payment, with the applied to document amount being $110, and the available balance is now $90. I can go and release this invoice, and straight away the invoice is closed because all the balance of the invoice has been paid. Customer refunds can now have open balances and can be applied to documents in more ways. In the previous versions, a customer refund can only be released if it is fully applied against a credit memo or a payment on the Payments and Application screen. In version 2021.2, I can create a customer refund, and I can enter an amount and straight away release the customer refund without having to apply it on any document. I can have an open balance here, and I can apply this customer refund on a credit memo, and I can apply it partially or fully as well. So for example, I'm just gonna apply this customer refund on this credit memo, and the amount to apply is $110. That gives me the available balance, which is the open balance of $390. I can release this customer refund, and the system still allows me to release. In the past, you cannot do this. You can only apply a full amount of the customer refund on a credit memo. Also, you can apply a customer refund on a sales order of type credit memo or return for credit as well. Also, in the past, you can only apply a credit memo on a customer refund in the Payments and Application screen. However, in this version, you can directly apply a credit memo on a customer refund on the Invoices and Memo screen. So I have this credit memo here. It has a balance of $55 and the status is balance. I have not yet released this credit memo. So when I go to the Applications tab of the credit memo, I have the option to select the customer refund, and I can just apply the customer refund directly on this screen. I'm just gonna enter the amount paid to be $55, which is the balance of this credit memo, and I'm going to release. And the system allows me to release successfully. The credit memo is now closed, and when I check the customer refund, there is still a balance left of $335, which I can apply on subsequent documents if I have to. One of the big changes in this version for the finance module is the option to prepare customer statements in multiple ways. Users can now prepare customer statements by branch, by company, or prepare a consolidated customer statement for all branches. Back to my demo database. Here I have prepared a few invoices for this customer. This invoice belongs to the headquarters branch. This invoice belongs to the Sydney branch, and this invoice belongs to the Melbourne branch. Both my Melbourne branch and my Sydney branch belongs to the regional offices company, and the headquarters company is also the headquarter branch. So if I go to the accounts receivable preferences screen, in this consolidation settings area, in the past version, there used to be a checkbox called Consolidate Customer Statements for all branches. Now that checkbox is removed and has been replaced with this option, Prepare Statements. I can either prepare statement for each branch or prepare statement for consolidated for company or consolidated for all companies. So if I select prepare statement for each branch, then in the print statement screen, you can see that there is a branch checkbox here where I can select which branch I want to print the statement for. So in this case, I'm just gonna select the Melbourne branch, and as you can see, only the Melbourne invoice appears here. So the invoice value is $220, which is this one, $220. Now if I print this customer statement, this is what I'm going to see. I can see that it only shows the Melbourne invoice, and the originated branch is the Melbourne branch. Similarly, if I select the Sydney branch here, then the system filters to only the Sydney invoice, and when I print this this customer statement, then the customer statement will show that the originating branch is the Sydney branch, and it only shows the Sydney invoice here. Now if I go back and select the second option, which is consolidated for company, and press save, and now I go back to the print statement screen and refresh. As you can see, the branch box is now replaced with the company box. And the Melbourne branch and the Sydney branch both belong to the regional offices company. It has now been replaced with this company instead. So if I select this company and select the statement cycle, I'm just going to filter the customer here. So as you can see, the statement balance is now $550, which is the total of the invoice that belongs to the Melbourne branch and the invoice that belongs to the Sydney branch. So when I print this customer statement, you will see that the On the customer statement, the originating company is the regional offices company, and it shows the Melbourne invoice and the Sydney invoice. The third option is to prepare statements that are consolidated for all companies. When I select this checkbox, then the statement from branch option is available. I will need to select which branch I want to prepare the statement for, and this branch here will appear on the customer statement as the original branch. So let's say I'm going to select headquarters branch here and save. And when I go back to the print statement screen and refresh, you can see that the company box or the branch box has now disappeared, and that is because I'm preparing customer statements that are consolidated for all branches. So I'm going to select print statement and select the statement cycle and filter for my customer and print this statement. And as you can see, the originating company is a headquarters company, and that is because I selected this headquarters company from here. And also, this consolidated customer statement shows all the invoices that belong to all branches, and that includes the headquarters branch, the Melbourne branch, and the Sydney branch. Were you asked, so we deliver? This is probably one of the more popular features that have been requested. Now it has landed in MYOB Advanced. In the previous versions, when reconciling bank accounts, you can only match one bank transaction to one document, and only if they have the exact same amount. This causes some inconvenience to users because very often your customers would make a bulk payment to your bank account. This problem will now be solved in this release. Now, MYOB Advanced has the capability to match one bank transaction to multiple documents. So on my screen here, I have a few bank transactions that I need to match to my documents. I have this transaction and it is a receipt of $350 and I will need to match it. I know that this is a bulk payment from my customer, so I will need to match it to a few payments in my system. As you can see right now, the system has not suggested any documents for me to match yet, and that is because right now in my system I don't have any transaction that is a receipt of $350. So I'm going to tick match to multiple payments, and you will see that the system has suggested two payments for me to match. This one has a value of $100. This one has a value of $300. And when I match these two, you will see that my receipt is $350, but the total of my document is actually $400. So I still have a remaining $50 to be matched. Now, if I try to process this bank transaction, then the system will show an error and it will tell me that the bank transaction amount and the documents amount, they are not matched. So I know that this customer pays me $350 for these two invoices as well as a refund of $50. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh the screen for now and try it again. Match multiple payments. There is a new feature called match to receipts and disbursement. And when this is ticked, the system will also show not only the transactions that are receipts, but also the disbursement transactions as well. So on this screen here, I have a receipt of $350. Whatever transaction that is not a receipt, it will show as a negative amount here. So this is a customer refund. It is therefore a disbursement of $50. So when I tick this one, then it will show minus 50. However, if you have a transaction that is a disbursement and you tick this checkbox here, match to receipts and disbursement, then the system will show negative side. So I will process for this transaction as well. Now all of my amount has been matched, and that is $100 for this payment, $300 for this payment, and a refund of $50. Everything has been matched. So now I'm just gonna process, and that has been successful. Similarly, not only can you match one bank transaction to multiple payments, you can also match one bank transaction to multiple invoices as well. So on my screen here, I have this bank transaction, which is a receipt of $1,100. And I know that this is a bulk payments for multiple invoices. So I'm just gonna highlight this transaction and go to the Match to Invoices tab and select Match to Multiple Documents. Now the system will suggest a number of invoices that I can match to. I know that this transaction belongs to the customer Lux Restaurant, so I'm just gonna find the invoice that belongs to the Lux Restaurant customer. So they are down here, and I'm just gonna select one of them. And as you can see, the moment I select the transaction that belongs to the Lux Restaurant's customer, everything is filtered to my Lux Restaurant's business account. So I'm just gonna match to the rest of them, and then I just need to click process, and that's how I can match this transaction to multiple invoices. Who remember how quick and easy it was to match bank transactions to invoices, where the bank transaction also includes bank charges? Hint, it wasn't really easy at all. There was no direct way to do it, and the user had to create an extra bank transaction for that bank charge and change the amount on the original bank transaction. I'm sure it has caused so many headaches to accountants and auditors. But here's the good news. MYOB Advanced can now help you match bank transactions to invoices with bank charges very easily. Let me show you how it's done. On this screen here, I have this bank transaction, which is a receipt of $400. I know that every time this customer pays me, the bank charge is $40. So I want to match this bank transaction to a few invoices. I'm just gonna highlight this bank transactions, go to the Match to Invoices tab, select Match to Multiple Documents, and select the invoices that I want to match to. So there are actually 4 of them. Now I have a remaining unmatched amount of minus $40, which is the bank charge. So all I have to do to process this amount is to go to the charge type box and select the bank charge entry type. And then I'm just going to select a charge amount of $40. And now I have matched everything. All I have to do to process this bank transaction is to just click process. And my bank transaction has been processed successfully. In the previous versions of MYOB Advanced, when you are processing bank transactions and the customer underpaid you, you can write off the balance of this amount. But if the customer overpaid you, you cannot write off this excess amount as a negative write-off. This version will introduce a functionality to handle this scenario. On my screen here, I have this bank transaction of $1,101. I'm going to highlight this bank transaction and match it to a payment. This is a payment for an invoice that values $1,100, so the customer has overpaid me $1 in this case. How generous. I'm just going to write it off. So all I have to do is to highlight this transaction, go to the Create Payment tab, select Create, and then select Mutual AR because I'm applying this transaction to an AR invoice. Next, I'm gonna select the customer, and then I'm just gonna select the invoice where I want to apply the payment to, which is this invoice here. As you can see, the amount paid is $1,100, which is the amount of the invoice, and I have an unapplied balance of $1. I'm just gonna write off this $1, and for a negative write-off, I will have to specify a -1 in here. And then I'm going to select the write-off reason code, which is a credit write-off. And then I'm gonna click process. And that is how you write off a negative write-off for a bank transaction. Up until version 2021.1, MYOB Advanced did not have the ability to support multiple base currencies within one tenant. As a result, when a company has entities that span across multiple countries, the implementation needs to be done in separate tenants, and therefore causing difficulties in maintaining a shared list of items, manage approvals, and it was not possible to have a joint project that involves employees from multiple companies. In MYOB Advanced version 2021.2, the ability to implement multiple companies with different currencies is now available. It is very important to mention that there are only a small subset of financial areas that are supported for the multiple base currency feature, and they are general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash management, time and expenses, and taxes. If you have multiple base currencies feature turned on, the following features are not supported: deferred revenue, contract management, fixed assets management, dunning ledger management, purchase requisitions, time management, projects, customer portal, customer management, service management, payroll, manufacturing, commerce integration, and Procore integration. MYOB Advanced version 2021.2 is shipped with the ability to create taxable cash entries in the Process Bank Transaction screen. Previously, users could not review or edit the applied taxes, tax category, tax zones, or tax calculation mode of a cash transaction. Also, they could not apply an exclusive tax to a document where they were creating a new cash transaction during the transaction processing. This will be changed in version 2021.2. Users can now create a cash transaction with one tax or multiple taxes that are applied automatically or manually to the transaction. Let's review these changes in the system. On this Process Bank Transaction screen, I have this cash transaction here, which is a disbursement of $110. So I know that with this disbursement of $110, 10% of it is actually a tax amount. So I need to create a cash transaction where 10% of it is the tax. So in order for me to do that, I'm just gonna highlight this line and go to the Create Payment tab and tick Create. Next, I'm gonna keep the module as CA, which is for cash transaction, and I'm gonna select an entry type. After that, as you can see, my amount is still $110. My tax amount is still 0. So in order for me to make a tax amount out of it, I need to first select a tax category. I'm just gonna select this one as an example. And you will see that the tax amount up until this point is still 0. That is because in MYOB Advanced, in order for the system to calculate the right tax, there needs to be a combination of a tax category and a tax zone. So to select the tax zone, I'm going to click on this tax total here and select the appropriate tax zone. Now the system will trigger this tax ID for me with a tax rate of 10%, and it will automatically calculate the taxable amount to be $100 and the tax amount to be 10. I'm gonna click OK, and then just gonna click process. And once that's done, the system will have already created a tax transaction in the cash management module with a detailed amount of $100 and a tax amount of $10.